People, not prompts, are what matters most in the AI era. While AI technologies, particularly generative AI, are serving up incredible opportunities to drive operational efficiency and innovation, you still need a skilled workforce that can make the most of them. In other words, investing in the latest technologies is useless if your people aren't ready to implement, scale, or utilize them effectively. This presents one of the biggest challenges to AI success, building an AI ready workforce. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving tech space. And I'm your host, Priya Diyalani. On average, the half life of professional skills is now less than 5 years, and in some tech fields, as short as 2.5. Considering the rapid rise of Gen AI over the last 2 years, these shifts are reaching an unprecedented pace, further shrinking the time it takes for skills to become outdated. Consequently, the skills gap is widening faster than ever, with both individuals and organizations struggling to learn or retrain fast enough to stay up to date. So, how do you best equip your workforce to genuinely thrive, not just survive in the AI era? Let's welcome Kashyap Dalal, co founder and COO of Simplilearn, to help us understand how we can build an AI ready workforce. Hi, Kashyap. A very warm welcome to our podcast today.
Hi, Priya. Thanks. It's great to be here.
Great. It's a pleasure again to have you on our episode today. And of course, when we talk about the tech talent deficit, it's a very critical bottleneck in terms of ensuring a widespread AI adoption. And of course, not just AI adoption, but ensuring that these AI adoption is also successful, which can be easily scaled up sustainably and responsibly. So we are going to talk more about that in our conversation today, Kashyap. But before that, I would want you to help us understand more about Simply Learn, its specialization, and alongside that, if you could tell us a little bit about you also, Kashyap. How has your journey been till date, and what is your role at Simply Learn today?
Sure. Simplon is one of the largest skilling players globally. We've trained about 15 million professionals across skills in data, technology, AI, cybersecurity, and so on. I think a little bit about what differentiates us and what sets us apart. I think largely when people think of online learning, the vision that comes to mind is a lot of e-learning courses, MOOCs, and library of short courses which are available. What differentiates us is a very strong obsession on outcomes, and that has been our vision from day one. We've been building this business for the last 12 to 15 years, and from day one it has always been about helping professionals and organizations create the skills that get them ahead, and therefore very strong focus on building the right kind of partnerships with industry bodies, with the top institutes like IIT Bombay or Oxford or many other top universities that we work with. And increasingly, as we speak right now, and closer to the topic of the discussion today, I think AI native learning experiences, that how do we use AI in skilling, as at the same time, how do we get the workforce ready for the kind of AI skills that are needed, and a lot of work happening on that front. So very excited to be here and share some of the learnings with the audience. My role specifically, I think as a co-founder, obviously look at anything that helps the business move forward. But I think more specifically as the COO, the focus that I have is one on the consumer business. I think roughly about 70% of our revenue as a company comes from the consumer business, and that's something that I'm responsible for directly. And apart from that, second, I think the entire backbone of the product and technology that we are building, I think work very closely with my colleagues and teams to make sure that we are up to date and really rebuilding and continuously updating our offerings in a very fast changing market. And obviously we'll talk more about it through the call today.
Definitely, Kashyap, and thank you for giving us that overview. And we're really glad to hear the vision that drives the growth of Simply Learn. And we are also, I mean, your explanation not only highlighted the company's core focus, but also shed light on how your leadership has also contributed to shaping its direction and impact. Now that our audience has a better understanding of your organization and your role within it, let's take a closer look at the larger industry landscape and the key trends influencing its future. Now, when we talk about generative AI, I think it has transformed the entire conversation around AI, and it definitely has significant potential to disrupt the ways we connect or interact. And I think it's also reshaping the way we work. For business leaders globally, the challenge is twofold: understanding the possibilities and risks Gen AI brings, and preparing for the inevitable organizational change that is headed their way. And I think the future success of Gen AI will hinge on a renewed focus on people. So, how has the rise of Gen AI changed the conversation around workforce readiness and continuous learning?
Sure. So I think, as you rightly pointed out, right, I mean, we see it in our own company as well as most of our clients who work with us, that every board meeting, one of the questions that's definitely there for the leadership of any company is that what is your AI strategy and what kind of productivity gains or competitiveness gains are going to come by your AI projects. And most of the leadership is still figuring out the answer. But at the same time, I think one very, very critical aspect of it is clearly the scaling strategy. That if people are not comfortable, if they are not AI native, then it's very difficult to innovate with AI. There will be namesake changes that you'll create a chatbot or you'll use some AI in drafting emails and stuff like that, and you won't have more to show for it beyond that. So I think AI, Gen AI in specific, has really changed the discussion, the narrative. I think upskilling has become really center stage. Lot of discussions with our partners are more around consulting and advising them on how companies are implementing AI skilling, what are the different aspects, what are the different applications, and really the skilling side is very closely coupled with the overall strategy of the company. So maybe through the course of this conversation, I will take you through 3 4 different phases that we've seen companies go through in terms of how they think of implementing AI, and then skilling is an outcome of that. So I think one of the misconceptions is more this, that a lot of people think of Gen AI or AI skilling just as one more category of skilling, right? Like for example, you would skill people on cloud certifications, or you will skill people on digital marketing or cybersecurity. And that's where AI is very different. I think AI is a horizontal. It applies to practically every aspect of what the company works in, and every kind of skill set. So whether it's a marketing team or development team or product team or support team, whatever team the company has, there are ways in which AI is going to transform the way of working. And that therefore becomes a very key question, that basically what is your AI strategy as a business? And then therefore the scaling plan comes out of it. That let's say if it is about people productivity, then the outcome of what kind of training is needed is very different. If it is about building AI first products, then it's very different, and so on. So I think we'll talk more about it, but I think Gen AI, one, it is very clearly linked to the AI strategy of the business. Second, the skilling side of it has become extremely critical, and more like a code red project in most companies, rather than something that is a tick mark that most companies would have skilling as a goal, that we want to have a future ready workforce. So we'll do some skilling program once a year, twice a year. The advent of AI has made it more front and center, that basically every quarter the companies are thinking about it, that do I have a workforce that's ready for the future? Are they AI first? Are they feeling comfortable with AI? Or is AI still feeling like something new, and people are still figuring out what will I do with AI? And they are just drafting emails or building chatbots. I think going beyond that, that's what we are working with most of our partners to figure out, that how do we help them and how do we get them forward.
Definitely, Kashyap. And I think what's become increasingly clear is that generative AI isn't just changing how work gets done, it's also redefining what it means to be work ready. I mean, the traditional approach of acquiring a skill once and relying on it throughout a career is no longer sufficient. because today professionals across industries are expected to continuously learn and adapt to these evolving AI tools, which are again, growing at a very unprecedented pace. And I think for organizations, for them also, they have to rethink their learning and development strategies, because upskilling is no longer just an annual initiative. I think it should become an ongoing business priority for most of the business leaders. And that naturally brings us to the next aspect of our discussion today. Now, I think with your earlier response, we are at the beginning of a transformational journey towards a more inclusive or intelligent learning environment, which forms the course of our conversation today. And at the heart of this transformation is the relationship between human intelligence and artificial intelligence, which will define the architecture of learning, I believe. According to you, you think, how are these modern learning platforms evolving to meet the demands of generative AI era?
Sure. So I think there are, top of mind, there are three key aspects that I see modern learning platforms. There is a fundamental shift that is needed. The first one is, moving from static content to adaptive systems. That just to explain this point, the speed at which AI is changing, not just in terms of the availability of tools or versions and so on, but also in terms of how companies and individuals are using how to, exactly figuring out new use cases for AI. What are the kind of applications it can be put into, and therefore the speed at which courses or content gets obsolete is super fast. So, for example, a course that was built in January of this year, in July of this year, it's stale. It's no longer cutting edge. And therefore, education platforms and learning platforms need to figure out what is the system design, what is the speed at which they are curating content, also making sure that basically the content itself can become dynamic now. AI itself has the capability of generating content on demand and so on. So it's a new architecture. It's a new way of thinking about the entire product, that content has to be extremely dynamic. You cannot build a course and then sell it for 2 years and then think of a refresh after 2 years. So that I would say is number one, that really the strategy to make it super dynamic and up to date. Content is becoming obsolete very, very fast. So that's one key angle, the way Gen AI era is changing learning platforms. Second one is AI as a pedagogy. So AI is not just the subject matter. AI is also one of the biggest tools available in terms of influencing how we help learners meet their objectives. For Simplilearn specifically, the bet on this is Albi, which is a multi-agentic AI system that we have recently launched. It's one of the first multi-agentic solutions for the learning ecosystem, and it cuts across. So, for example, helping a person figure out what they should be learning, then being a learning buddy through that learning process, clarifying doubts and stuff like that, working with the learners to build projects. Beyond that, if there are learners who are specifically looking at getting ready for a certain role or a interview for either an internal movement within the company or applying to a job, going through mock interviews, the kind of simulation that for this role, what kind of things you should be aware of and so on. So it's all different use cases in one AI that is built and which has all the data on the learner, that the entire journey, what things the learner excels at, where the learner is struggling, and therefore curating the responses basis that history. I think that makes a huge difference. So AI as the pedagogy and platform is as critical as the subject matter. So I would say that's a second huge area of investment for us and ideally for the entire sector. And the third one is more around outcome, the focus on outcome. Because especially with a skill like AI, it is no longer about bookish knowledge. It's not about learning a skill from slides or videos and stuff like that. It's all about what you are able to do with it, right? And therefore, how do we build programs which are much more focused on actual hands-on work, whether it is through projects, whether it is through building something. Increasingly, what we find is that many of our programs are more focused on building stuff, that you are building an app, building a bot, building a website, whatever it might be. So depending on the focus of the program, how do you use the tools to actually build? It's not about learning the skill, it's about actually using them, right? And these are, I would say, the three main areas in which we see that, let's say in the last 2 years, we've seen a huge shift, the way our platform is designed, the way our programs are structured, what is the key focus area in the entire journey for the learner.
Definitely, Kashyap, and I think considering how we are evolving in the Gen AI era, I think it's also fascinating to see how these learning platforms are no longer considered or just used as digital repository of content, but they are transforming into more intelligent and adaptive ecosystems that can personalize the learning journeys and act as AI powered mentors. And again, with generative AI in the picture, it has fundamentally changed the expectations of learners themselves. Because today, as a learner, I mean, even I would want information that is instantly available or tailored to my individual needs, and something that I can directly apply to real world challenges. And I think on the other hand, organizations too should also look beyond the traditional training metrics and focus on measurable business outcomes and ensuring that there is continuous upskilling at scale.
No, absolutely.
Great. So when we talk about building an AI ready workforce, I think organizations are heading, with a freshly enthusiasm to upskill their workforce and unlock the full value of their AI investments. Uh, for many, I think it will be an uphill battle. Despite setting ambitious AI targets, a BCG research shows some very surprising statistics. For example, just 5% of companies are achieving AI value at scale, 60% are hardly achieving any value at all, and 35% are somewhere in between. At present, I think many organizations are focusing on the launch of AI solutions instead of ensuring people can meaningfully use them in their daily work. And workforces are facing a skills gap, where they are not using AI tools effectively in ways that both integrate and transform their workflows. What strategies, according to you, have proven most effective in helping enterprises close this AI skills gap?
Sure. So I think the way I would look at it is the first and most critical thing for an organization to skill effectively is having a very clear idea about what is the end objective, right? And that's where companies who have defined this very clearly, they have had way greater success with the skilling projects that are implemented. And at a high level, we see four phases from personal experience as well as working with many of the large companies. There are four phases of AI application in the company. The first one, the most basic one, starts with personal productivity. This is how most companies start thinking about it, that, if my developer starts using AI, how much productivity increase will happen? If my designer or copywriter or analyst starts using AI tools, then can they do their job faster, better? Can they, let's say, can one person do the job of two people, and so on, right? So that is the first phase, that it's all focused on personal productivity. And the learning delivery over there is more about comfort with tools, understanding use cases, understanding applications, showing that to people in practice, that, if this is the objective, then how can the AI tool be used to meet it? As well as helping people figure out the right tool selection, that basically what are the tools in the market, what capability set do they provide, and so on. So personal productivity, if that's the clear objective, then there's a different solution to it in terms of the kind of courses, the kind of training programs that need to be implemented internally, and getting people to actually start playing with those tools, because you can do as much of skilling as you want, but when you start using the tool, that's when you really realize what it's capable of. Phase two, or a second application, is more building agents, right? And companies typically start with personal productivity as an objective, then they slowly start getting into building agents, that what are the repetitive tasks that can be automated. How do you set up automated workflows using tools like N8N or so many others which are available? and line up those workflows where the task becomes redundant, or perhaps if some verification is needed, then there's still a human in the loop for judgment calls, but you are able to automate and streamline a lot of manual repetitive work in the company, right? So that's the second phase, and there then it's all about training the process owners on agentic AI, that what are the capabilities of agentic AI systems, how do you implement them, how do you create the right pods where there'll be somebody with business acumen, there's somebody from a product and tech perspective who's implementing the workflow, and so on. And you have two, three key people working together and getting the skill set to design complicated workflows and automating them. Right. So building agents is a second big thing, and then the skilling approach becomes slightly different. Then, and this is where it gets little uncomfortable in most organizations, that the entire phase of reorganizing for AI. Right. So the first two phases, it's all about applying AI as is. That there is a certain team structure, there are people doing certain jobs and stuff like that, and you are teaching them to use AI or build agents, and that streamlines the process, improves productivity, all good stuff. But gradually, companies and leadership realizes that with the new processes and new workflows, the way it works, you can fundamentally think of the organization differently. There will be certain roles that will become redundant. There will be new roles that will be needed, who need to serve new purposes. That basically, like, for example, if you have a multi-agentic system, who's the owner of the system? In the traditional organization, there is nobody who's skilled for that role. So you need to build new skills. So reorganizing for AI translates into a different kind of thought process where the company needs to clearly define that these are the three, four new roles that are going to emerge. And I need to identify people who need to be trained for those roles. Right. And that becomes a different body of work from a skilling perspective. And in fact, I would say even more critical than that is leadership understanding how to go about it, right? So, for example, one of the programs which is extremely successful is a program that we've launched with Oxford University in UK, which is termed as Organizing with AI, where faculty from the university have built this program and put together the body of knowledge that, let's say, if a company is going through business transformation and needs to think that what is an AI first organization, how do you go about it, how do you think of the design of that organization, right? So reorganizing for AI is like a third big bucket where then the skilling interventions would be different. And then I think the fourth bucket is more about, actually reimagining the product and experience. In an AI first world, how do you rethink your core product, rethink the experience that your customers are getting, and therefore build out the kind of product interfaces or the product experiences that AI is now capable of, right? And I mean, an example in our business is what we've done with LB, that basically, AI application started with some bot here or some automation there and some productivity related work, but it has then evolved into LB as a new product where basically all our learners have a multi-agent system which is able to give them an experience that earlier was perhaps not possible, by giving them real-time responses, real-time assistance, and things of that nature, right? So I think those are the four key phases. The skilling plans are very different for each phase. And coming back to the main question that, how do companies plan this entire process of, bridging the skill gap? I would say that 80% of the success is linked to having the clear definition that which of these four phases are you trying to target. And therefore, that translates into your skilling goals. And once the skilling goal is clear, then the right people can be given the right kind of program or right kind of experience to make sure that by the end of that program, they are effective in what was desired. And that really helps many of our partners achieve great success.
Definitely, Kashyap, I agree with you. And it's clear that bridging the AI skills gap isn't simply about introducing new tools or conducting one-off training sessions. It requires organizations to rethink how they approach learning, talent development, and workforce transformation as a continuous process. And I think what's particularly interesting is that the pace of AI innovation is far outstripping the pace at which the traditional upskilling models were designed to operate. Uh, Companies today aren't just looking for AI specialists, they are trying to empower employees across functions with the confidence and capabilities to work alongside AI effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what most of the discussion is about when we
Mhm.
speak to our customers.
Right, right. And when we talk about organizations engaging or in introducing their upskilling initiatives, I think it's also important to understand the professionals side as well. Now, human work is likely to evolve. McKinsey mapped thousands of workplace skills commonly found in job postings to the tasks for which they were typically used. More than 70% of the skills employers look for today are relevant to both automatable and non-automatable work, while another 12% remain entirely human, at least for now. Now, as AI absorbs more cores and tasks like sifting information or organizing data and drafting basic content, workers will have to lean more heavily on the capabilities that machine do not offer, which includes your judgment, relationship building, critical thinking, empathy, and much more. So while AI is changing the job roles faster than ever, should professionals focus on mastering one specialization or developing a broader portfolio of complementary skills? What do you think?
I think this is a great question, right? And the way I would say people should think about it is that, so traditionally the way organizations were designed was that there was a role separation between who is a planner and who is a doer. And just to explain this, planner is anybody who's building the strategy, figuring out what needs to be done, and so on. Like, for example, a marketing manager or a product manager or somebody in the strategy team and so on. And then there were a lot of roles which were basically doers. That, let's say, there's a developer who's building or writing code, there's a designer, there's a copywriter, and so on. Now what AI is doing is that it is bridging this divide very fast. That the future of the kind of opportunities and roles that will be there, they are going to be a combination of planners and doers. You will no longer have like clean separation and specialists on both sides. What we internally call this is a builder. That basically the future opportunities are for builder kind of roles who cut across the planning and doing, kind of classification that has traditionally divided the teams, right? And therefore, when somebody thinks of skilling or what kind of exposure they should be aiming for, I think the key thing is that if somebody is in a planning kind of a role, you're a marketing manager, product manager, business manager, and so on. I think there has to be a focus to learn the tools to get into the doer side. That basically, let's say if traditionally somebody was dependent saying that if I want a creative, then I'm going to write a brief and give it to the designer, right? Or if I want to build a product, I have some kind of a idea in mind, then I'll give it to the designer and the developer saying that make a mock-up, then write the code, then give me the product. What AI is doing is that these people are fully capable of building the products themselves. They write the right kind of prompts, if they use the right kind of tools, they will be able to create an MVP of a product, design a campaign, execute it, analyze data. All of that is something that's very easy to do. And same way, the same challenge is there for the doers. That basically, if you are a specialist in a specific area, either you are in the top 5 percentile, that you are so good that you are still going to be very critical in terms of adding value, or otherwise you have to get more exposure on the planning side, get more horizontal exposure, create that business judgment, understand what kind of opportunities are there, and slowly start becoming a builder. So I think the future roles that we see are basically they are going to be more builder roles, which are basically people who are cutting across business strategy, customer experience, as well as then executing and being able to create some of these things quickly using the AI tools. And therefore, how do you go about figuring out the right skilling, or the right skills to pick up with this in mind, that finally what do you want to do, right? I think it's all about that. It's not about learning some specific skill or tool or whatever. It's more that what is your experience background and what is the end thing that you're going to build. Are you going to build marketing campaigns? Are you going to build apps, products, whatever it is? I think how do you create the full bouquet of experience that can allow you to build and create something which is like 90% there and ready for the market, right? So how do you basically build more skill sets around that?
Right, Kashyap, and I think ultimately the path forward with AI isn't a zero-sum game, but rather a collaborative frontier where human talent and AI work together side by side. There's no doubt that some jobs will shrink in the AI age, others will expand or change, and new ones will emerge. The transition will be challenging for workers and businesses as well. But organizations that help people build the skills needed to work with AI will capture far more value than those that simply just deploy new tools. Thank you so much, Kashyap, for your time and effort to be on a podcast today and helping us understand that AI will transform tasks, but human work will endure. And I think it will take more than transforming your technology to win. You will need people who are ready to harness its full potential. And the companies that succeed will invest in their people as a core asset and not just in technology. So, thank you so much for your insights. It was lovely talking to you, Kashyap.
Thanks, Priya. Same here.
Thank you so much. So, this is for our listeners. I hope you enjoy today's discussion around how you can build your workforce AI ready. What are certain challenges you might encounter? What are certain ways that you can overcome these challenges and ensure that you are building a workforce that feels ready and prepared to take on the future? Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, and you can view all our previous episodes on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.